Hello everyone, so I've been asked a few times to make a guide for jet boots. Now obviously I am a Soaring Blades Gremlin and that's all I know. However, just for you guys, I learned jet boots. Of course it isn't to the same capacity as I know how to play Soaring Blades, so keep that in mind. I learned enough, however, to know enough just from using Soaring Blades to be able to explain how a weapon works on its own. So keep in mind I won't be talking about good old deluxe jet boots, as you can probably just watch my Soaring Blades bouncer guide from a few months back, as it still is a perfectly good reference to use. This guide will go into techniques, photon arts, normal attacks, photon blasts, Mars Hydra usage, jet sweep jolt, and custom 2 rampaging Harrier. There are also some other things such as the weapon action we will talk about. Along the way I will also explain the applications of each attack. Before any of this, I'll just briefly go over the skill tree. I don't exactly need to explain every skill, but the main stuff to note is that Jet Boots makes use of Elemental Set, which allows it to cast a technique to set an element so it can hit enemies' elemental weaknesses. Many bouncers will likely agree that this is one of the worst aspects of Boots. Boots also specialize in making elemental downs happen much faster. However, unlike Soaring Blades, which is actually quite good at physical downs, Boots has it much rougher, as getting elemental downs is a bit more annoying. You've also got all of your technique and mechanics, which you'll likely only be using 1 or 2 at any given time at most. You've got Thrust Drive, which lets you gap close when you use a normal attack after casting a technique. You've also got Boots Skip Arch, which lets you use a strong attack after chaining together 2 different PAs. This also works after using a Thrust Drive, and Boots Trick Bounce Counter, which lets you hit the enemy with a strong attack after you press the normal attack after a weapon action counter. Finally, we have Jet Intensity, which chains together a string of attacks when your normal attacks are held down into one strong final hit, as well as Jet Sweep Jolt, your main damage cooldown where a lot of your damage will also come from. Okay, so now that we went over Boots' skill tree pretty quickly, let's go over techs. Now, as a bouncer that primarily uses Soaring Blades, the only technique I really care to use is Megi Type 2. This is typically regardless of the enemy when it comes to bossing. You basically charge orbs, and then when you have 2 or 3 orbs, you use a charge Megi, which deals quite a bit of damage to enemies. With Soaring Blades, you don't really get to use it too much because you don't always use Jet Boots PAs, but now that you're using Jet Boots, you will be able to get 3 orbs for Megi to sphere quite a lot. This is still really good for Boots, and a lot of Starless bosses are conveniently weak to Dark, so you'll be using this quite a bit. Occasionally, you may also find usage for Zonde, as it hits enemies extremely far away very well thanks to its Chain Lightning effect. Some bombing where enemies are spread out will allow you to make good use of this technique. Beyond this, there are a lot of other techniques that are mostly just used for Elemental Set. I'd say Barra Type 2 and Grants Type 2 are very honorable mentions because these are very useful custom techniques. Type 2 grants acts as a guard point that negates damage whatever attack is about to hit you, while Barra 2 just makes Barra Blot detonation much stronger. Beyond that, I admit I'm a bit iffy on Wind, Fire, and Lightning, but in general the custom 2 options for all of these seem pretty good, so use those. With techs done, let's discuss Photon Arts. Before we go on mine, keep in mind each PA has a variant that activates when you hold down the PA button. We first have Spitting Gust. Spitting Gust is a PA in which you do 2 quick hits which move you forward. When held down, you will do a final strong kick. Generally speaking, this PA isn't used too much outside of using the unheld version for quick movement in a pinch. It's not a bad PA, but the next PA we talk about is just outright better at dealing damage and building jolt dodge. Of course, I'm talking about Violent Gale. This PA does a few quick hits in its unheld version, which lets you reposition yourself as you deal damage. Thanks to Custom 2, it also builds jolt dodge much faster than usual. The held down version of this PA will do a kick attack which pushes you backwards. It provides a huge gain to jolt dodge, but it's kinda weird to use due to how it pushes you back. Wrist repositioning is very good, however, if using Fierce Wave. Fierce Wave is a PA which you typically chain together with Violent Gale for easy jolt dodge gain, and it'll let you easily follow up with a final step normal attack. Fierce Wave is a PA which has extremely low overall damage, but has absolutely massive jet sweep jolt dodge accumulation when you hold down the Photon Art. The Custom 2 version extends the PA almost completely filling the jolt dodge if all of ticks of the PA land on the target. The unheld version is a quick single dot, which is fast and lets you easily follow up with a final step normal attack after Violent Gale. Finally, we have Surging Impulse. This is another PA that has low damage over time, but upon using the held version, will cause a small ring to appear around you for a set amount of time. This ring, when it comes into contact with enemies, will deal damage to them and give passive jet sweep jolt dodge gain. When this PA concludes, it will explode on the target, dealing some, but still somewhat low damage. The unheld version is a kick attack that moves towards whatever you are locked onto. This PA lets you lock onto and move towards elevated targets too, which has some nice usage, like skipping the platforming segment in Phase 1 of Darkfall Solace by locking onto the core, and using unheld Surging Impulse. Think of it as a niche gap closer otherwise. You will mostly be using this PA for the held version. Now we went over PAs, let's talk about the normal attack. Well, we actually did when we go over skill trees, but let's talk about jet intensity anyways. This is intended to be Jet Boot's big damage attack you use on downs. It still kinda is, and if you're cheeky, you can fit one in an active boss, assuming you can finish the whole cycle of attacks. Otherwise, stick to using it when the enemy is down. However, there are also other alternatives for what you can use when the enemy is down, which we will talk about in a bit. The next big attack Boots can use is of course its Photon Blast. The Jet Boost Photon Blast is not only faster than the Soaring Blade's Photon Blast, but also travels a far distance straight from where it was shot and pierces whatever enemy it hits along its path. Upon using it and landing in hits, you will also fully charge the Jet Sweep Jolt gauge. Next is something new, which is Mars usage. Bouncer is in a unique spot where none of its mechanics are overly important and worth really losing and don't really lose much from activating Mars. This means that you can take advantage of this and equip Hydra either for a pre-charge Hydra Annihilation or for usage on breaks. This essentially frees up holding a Photon Blast for breaks and lets you use it elsewhere, so you can instead use Hydra on breaks instead. Next we have Jet Sweep Jolt. We've talked about this a lot already, but basically Jolt is a cooldown which has a gauge. You fill this gauge by using Jet Boot's Photon Arts, Photon Blast, or Jet Intensity, as well as weapon action counters. This is a strong cooldown which in many cases will outdamage whatever PA you were using before, and it also increases the attack speed of your PAs for a bit after use. PP consumed by PAs are also reduced for a bit of time after using Jolt. You want to use Jolt, you should use Jolt, and you should do whatever it takes to always have it ready the moment it goes off cooldown. This is unfortunately how boots are meant to be played, and it revolves entirely around Jet Sweep Jolt. It's basically a cult. Is that even an analogy that works? Whatever. We've also got to cover the weapon action. Weapon action itself is something I've touched upon, but the upside of Boot's weapon action is that you can easily counterattack with lingering hitboxes several times. This means that attacks which don't immediately end will allow you to get off not just one, but multiple counterattacks by mashing the weapon action. This will allow you to easily gain Jet Sweep Jolt gauge. Some prime examples of this are Darkfall's Interception spinning lasers, Darkfall's Soulless Orbs during Phase 2 when the rotating walls come out, and pretty much anything else that functions in a similar manner to this. Of course, if you use a normal attack after a successful counter, you will perform an extra attack which works best when an attack does not have a lingering hitbox. So we have now covered everything Boots has to offer. But there's also some usage for Soaring Blades, and no, it's not Blade Arts Parry or Blade Arts Parry Sidestep. Custom Type 2 Rampaging Harrier deals increased damage on downs. This is generally really bad if you mainly use Soaring Blades because you don't gain the attack speed of Custom 3. However, this is a pretty good tool for Jet Boots to use as an alternative damage option on downed enemies. You can skip this if you don't want to use Soaring Blades at all, but this is an option and it's a good alternative to Jet Intensity, and I recommend using it. With that, basically everything's been covered. There's probably a few more practical applications I haven't discussed, but more than anything else, I recommend you try using what you've learned here for yourself too. You can only learn so much from my guide, and hands-on experience will do you much better in the long run. With that being said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.